Good morning, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Keep It Solid. Today is Tuesday, February 17th, 2026. I am Solid Blue Sister, and with me, Dread Empath. She's all bundled up, but Dread. So, you guys, I want to start the day off with, or the morning, or my show with the news of, I know a lot of people know about it. Reverend Jesse Jackson has passed away at the age of 84. And I remember being on vacation with my family in 1988 when Jesse Jackson gave his iconic um, speech when he was running for president. He lost that election, the nomination. Um, it went to Michael Dukakis, who only got one state in the Democratic. It was, it was bad. But anyway, um, you know, Jesse Jackson, he had a complicated history. Some people liked him, some people didn't. Some black people liked him, some black people didn't. But one thing that we have to remember is that Jesse Jackson was one of the people who were in the middle of the fight. He was in the middle of the civil rights movement. He was with Martin Luther King when he was assassinated. Um, he was on the front lines with John Lewis. I mean, he was one of the people who, he was an icon, whether you like him or not. He helped push this nation forward. Um, I remember when um, the Rainbow Coalition was Operation Bread Basket, and my parents used to go every single Saturday, and they would listen to Jesse Jackson. I've gone when I was little. I remember going and listening to him. Um, so he is someone who we should mourn. He is someone who should be missed, and I'm just glad that I was alive to be part of that world, and I'm still part of that world. So, anyway, so today, y'all,
Absolutely.
individual choices. The government is not responsible for your actions. All right, so why am I talking about this? I am talking about this because, some people say that the government is responsible for this. The government is responsible for racism. The government is responsible for everything that goes on. It is the government. It is your individual choice. These ICE agents out there now, as you all know, I am 100% against illegal immigration. But when you join ICE, you have a choice. You have a choice if you want to go out there and be a bully and beat up on people, or if you want to do the right thing. And if you're going to arrest people, you do it the right way. You have a choice.
Agree.
If you're, in a gang, you have a choice. Do you want to be in that gang, or do you not want to be in that gang? You have a choice. Derek Chauvin had a choice. Did he want to put a knee on George Floyd's neck to kill him, or could he have just arrested him and taken him to jail or whatever he was going to do, and let the process do its work? People, you have choices. It's not the government. It's not the government. However, the government is responsible for certain things, like in terms of making it where uh, the laws that we have, but to a certain extent, because people still part of the government. The government is made up of individuals. So, Dread.
I certainly do agree that people put too much emphasis on the government, the government, the government. Um, The government doesn't tell you to drop out of school. The government doesn't tell you to sit around and not work. The government is not responsible for that. If you're going to utilize the government and assistance from the government, don't just utilize it for WIC or food stamps. There are plenty of government assistance programs that will help you find work,
Mhm.
viable work. I know a few of my friends who, they were on, they received food stamps, they received housing, but they also took the initiative to go and get into the healthcare field or the dental field. So nobody talks about that part of the government, that the government will help you be a viable citizen, a tax-paying citizen, someone in the workforce. You know, everybody, and trust me, I am not pro-government. We all know that, but I am pro taking responsibility for your individual choices.
So let me ask you: do you think that people who blame the government um, do it because they don't want to acknowledge their own feelings, that their own biases, or they want, because they can't get a job, so therefore the government is doing this, or I went down to a protest and I was egging on the 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 ICE agents beating up on this Mexican guy, whatever. Those are your choices. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, is
absolutely.
is it? Are you using the government as an excuse because you yourself have issues that you don't want to acknowledge out loud or even to yourself?
Absolutely. The hardest thing to do is admit that you are the problem. And a lot of people do not want to admit that they are the problem. People will sit on their phones and scroll TikTok, Instagram for hours on hours, but they won't do the necessary research. Okay, if I live below the poverty line, what other programs do I qualify for? I know for a fact that, I'm not sure how it is now, but years ago, you used to be able to go take a nursing assistant course, phlebotomy, medical billing, medical coding, so on and so forth. But, the government is great as long as they're giving handouts. But the minute they say, hey, if you're able bodied, you have to go get a job. Otherwise, we're going to cut your assistance. Now the government is evil. You have people who receive Section 8. Did you know that Section 8 will help you towards becoming a homeowner?
Well,
You
you
can
also
use
have
your
people
Section 8 to
who,
become a homeowner.
but you also have people who are Section 8 who are, people think, oh, you're Section 8. Oh, I don't want to live next to you. You got Section 8 people who I'd rather live next to than the, than the person who is living in that $1 million house, because, it's like they're trash. So this whole thing that the government is responsible for all these things is just, it's just crazy. Do you think that, okay, what about systemic failures? What about the fact that, and I'm going to use Chicago as an example. Chicago used to have a well-known project which they tore down many years ago, um, called Cabrini Green. Now,
I've heard of Sabrina Green.
Cabrini Green um, went up and it just, housed thousands of poor Black people.
Hmm.
And one of the one of the ways to get into Cabrini Green when it first went up, and then it spread to the Robert Taylor homes and all these other places, one of the criteria was you could not have a male in the house.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of black families who were cohesive and who were together, but because the father wanted to make sure that his family had a home, he left so his wife and his children could have a house. That was one of the criteria. Is the government responsible for that? Because to me, that was all by design. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, black people, you all, your father left the house and all this other stuff. But yet, for white people, if they wanted to get into public housing, they just had to have a an economic threshold. You couldn't make this much money, but dad was still in the house. So, is the government responsible for systemic? And Dred, I do believe you are frozen. Okay, there you go. Okay, so all right,
I
yeah.
do be- I do believe that it was by design, because why was the criteria why was that the criteria for us but not for everyone else? It was by design. Now, yes, we know that mothers can raise their children on their own, but children come tend to come out better when there is a two-parent household. So they took that away from our community, and you couple that in the inner city with poor black people, and then everybody's on top of each other. Everybody's struggling. Everybody's trying to make ends meet. Tempers flare. Frustration, stress, and it just becomes a powder keg. Now, to play devil's advocate, there were some fathers that said, no, I'm not leaving my home. If I have to work two or three jobs to support my family, that's what I'm going to do, but I'm not leaving. So, do you think that these men made the right choice, or how do you feel about that some
I
of these
mean,
men chose to leave?
I'm conflicted with that because I do know that you had a lot of men who refused to leave, and literally, if a social worker or somebody came by to check, um, the father had to hide, or
Right.
he went next door to Mrs. Jones' house while whoever was there, and I think that's ridiculous, and that's why one thing that I liked about Esther Roll when Good Times started. Do you remember Good Times? Okay,
Yes.
okay. Esther Roll, one of the things that she told Norman Lear, because he wanted Florida Evans to be a single parent. And she said, absolutely not. She said, I was raised in a two-parent household. I know many black people who live in a two-parent household, and just because you're in the projects does not mean that you have to live. It is a single parent, which is usually the mother.
Right.
So I applaud the men who said no, I'm not leaving. I am staying. But then again, people always want to look at single parent households as black women. You have a lot of white women who raise children by themselves. You have a lot of, and you have a lot of people who think that black women have these babies and they don't know who their fathers are, wherever. Where you have a lot of white people who were raised with single parents and they don't know who their fathers are. So the stereotypical stuff that gets put in the media and the stereotypical stuff that people believe, it's just dribble, and a lot of
It
it,
is.
yes, it is the government, but again, it is your individual choice. It is. There are a lot of single Latino parents. There are a lot of single black parents, a lot of single white parents. The only parents that I can say that I haven't really seen a single parent unless the parent has died is Asian.
True. Very true.
And I think that's a cultural thing where just by their culture, everything is the grandmother is in the house, the grandmother, every everybody is, it's a whole family thing.
Right, it's a
Yeah,
whole, and it's generational.
yeah, yeah,
It's very
yeah,
generational.
yeah. You
But
know,
yeah, it's everybody has to take responsibility for their own actions. And I do, like I said, I'm on the fence with it. I understand why some of these men left, and I applaud the men who didn't, who said, no, not going anywhere, not going anywhere. I'll work these two jobs, but I'm going to take care of my family. And it created a fracture in our community, and it created a talking point that nobody wants to let go of, or nobody wants to get to the root of either. Nobody
well, I
wants
mean,
to
we
say
already know what the root is, but people don't want to acknowledge it. I mean, people,
acknowledge it. There you go.
people don't want to people don't want to acknowledge that, I mean, let's be honest, so um people who don't like my talking points and what have you, y'all, I'm just trying to be real, so I mean, I um I did not know anyone from a single parent household until I went away to college. um And if growing up, if I did see somebody who was part of a single household, it's because their parent had died. But people
Right.
that I met along the way, um, who have come from a single parent household, I know someone who has five children, um,
Five.
five kids. Their father was actually killed in Vietnam. Um, their mother worked four jobs. Every last one of those children. You got two doctors, an attorney, and a very successful accountant or CPA. Each one of those children have their doctorate degrees,
They excel.
and yes, they are black.
Okay. So would you say they succeeded in spite of, or they just succeeded? Because that seems to be the talking point as well. People are like, well, they're the minority. And I said, no, just because, and I applaud doctorate degrees, I'm all for education, but I think that we get hung up on, and we could go back to individual choices yet again. People like to say, oh, well, single mothers don't raise, they don't raise children to be viable citizens. All of the men who are in the penitentiary came from a single mother household. And I said, no, that I tell people, no, that's false. Because I've seen plenty of white males who say, yeah, my dad was in the house and he beat the living snot out of me every day. I took my first drink with my dad. I got high for the first time with my dad. So it comes back to your personal choices. You choose. You choose to go out there in the street and find a quote unquote father figure. There are father figures at school if you would go. You could join the basketball team. Your coach could be a father figure. You could join the marching band. Your band director could be a father figure. So it is all about choices.
But you know what though? But it's not just the father, because you have a lot of single fathers who are raising children too. And I don't think that they get the props that they deserve, because you do have a lot of single fathers, single homes with fathers. But I agree with Anthony that they succeeded. Those people succeeded, not in spite of. They succeeded because whether or not
Right.
whether or not their father was still here, whether he had not passed, they still had at least one parent who was going to push them. They still had
True.
that one parent who was going to make sure that you're going to go to school, you're going to do this, and if their father were still living, their father would have been just that extra person who was able to do that. It would not have been so hard for her. She would not have had to work for jobs. But the fact that she got out there and she worked for jobs. I remember when the Cosby Show first started. Dread the amount of noise that came on the Cosby Show with the fact that it's not realistic that you have a family. Number one, that they're together with five,
Right.
again with five kids, but there's a doctor and an attorney. Oh, that's not realistic. I mean, just the that alone was insulting, and a lot of black people took offense to that when the Cosby Show first started.
I mean, well, I was a baby when the
You're losing your audio. You're losing your audio. Dread, you're losing your can't hear you. Can't hear you.
can't
Okay,
hear me.
now I can hear you.
Okay. I said, yeah, that I was a baby when that show was out, and yes, that is very damn offensive to say that a doctor and an attorney can't. Why? Because they're black. We have black attorneys, we have black doctors, but it falls into representation, and that's probably what racist white America didn't like, that it was black representation. No, it's not a struggle show like Good Times where you had two black parents, but they were struggling. They were living in the projects. It was like, oh no, we can't have that. And Solid, you're probably not gonna like what I'm about to say about single fathers not getting their props. No, I don't give props to parents for doing what they're supposed to do. As Angela Bassett said in Boys in the Hood, you're not special. It's just too bad more brothers won't do it.
No,
But
no,
no,
I don't know.
just like
I don't know.
you know,
No. And see, I am going to take exception to that because I'm not talking about black men who don't step up. I'm talking about black men who they were there the entire time, but their wife could have passed, their partner could have passed, whatever, but they were there. They always stayed. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about stepping up because you have a lot of women who don't step up for their children. you know you,
I
you
agree.
you have two parent households who they're there but they're absent, or they're abusing their children, or you know just or they parentify another kid. Well, go talk to your sister, go talk to your
I
brother.
can hear you.
So yeah.
Keep it going, Solid.
Okay.
Sorry, folks. I blew a tire and I'm at the tire shop. Solid, keep it going. I'll be right back.
Oh, no problem. So there are people who they do step up. They've always been there, but society has made it where you know um, they are not there. They are, these people, usually these people of color who can't seem to have a two-parent household, or have parents who give a crap. But we do have parents that give a crap. Again, you have black women who are the most educated in this country. You have black men who are educated. You have people who we survive, as someone who said on the sound of coffee. We survive. We're always in survival mode. So we succeed because we want to succeed. It's our individual choice to succeed. Just like it's your individual choice if you choose not to go to school, if you choose not to do the right thing, If you choose to hang out with the wrong people, and I'm not talking about gangs, I'm talking about you can date someone who is the wrong person. I've dated people who were the wrong people until
Amen. Me too.
until I, got a clue, whatever. It is your individual choice. Um, all right, so we have someone who says this is the most I guess it's insane propaganda I've ever had the displeasure to stumble on. Um, what propaganda are we talking about? That we're talking about individual choices? I mean, oh, okay.
Right. Okay. But
You know,
uh, when it comes to individual choices, since we're talking about parenting as well, um, as parents, we make choices. Like I'll give you a great example. Now, I didn't like to go to school. School was boring to me. I got excellent grades. I was that student. You give me the syllabus, I'm gonna turn in all them assignments, but I ain't coming to your class. I have better things to do. And I almost did not graduate, not because of my work, but because of my attendance. I just didn't like to go to school. When they said, listen, in order to perform in the concert choir, you have to come to class. All right. In order to perform in the marching band, you have to go to class. So I had to go to class. But my mother made the choice to tell me, she said, Dred, you are graduating high school. She said, you're going across that stage. She said, now, whether you walk across that stage or somebody pushes you in a wheelchair, you're going across that stage. That is not optional. And that was it. And my mother made the choice a long time ago that education was key in our house. I never stopped learning to this day. Oh, solid. Off the subject. We're talking about choices, right? Now, I have a career, but I'm thinking about going to school for mortuary science to have a second career. That's a choice. Nobody's forcing me to do that. I'm choosing to have a second career so that, hey, I can make some money as an embalmer when I don't, when I retire at 60. I may want to do part-time work, but it's a choice. We all have choices, and what choices you make or don't make can shape the rest of your life. Like you said, doesn't have to be joining a gang. It could just be a friend that's a part of a gang that likes to steal, that doesn't like to go to work. You know, um, who you're dating. Oh, well, I'm dating them, so I got to help them out. No, you don't. You do not have to help someone who refuses to help themselves. You absolutely do not.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I mean, no, you make a good point, and again, it comes back to your individual choices. You choose what you want to do. You choose if you want to get up in the morning to go to work. You know, um, you choose to be late to work every day. Your boss chooses to fire you.
Right. That look. Oh, they have it out for me. No, you choose. You choose to. Hit the snooze on the alarm. You choose not. It's all choices. And I do understand, like you said, about systemic. Systemic oppression when it comes to the government. Yes, because the first thing that people will say, well, white people have it bad too. We're not saying that they don't, but they make choices just like we do. You choose to keep having children that that you can't afford. You choose to, and this is no shade, trigger warning. You choose to keep using drugs and that it's going to lead you to homelessness, to jail or prison, to losing your children. It's all a choice.
And I just want to say that those drugs that you choose to use are not just in the black community. It's in the white community.
White
It's
community.
it's
Thank
all over.
you.
Let's talk about the meth problem. Let's so
Forget about the meth problem, the opioid problem.
you know,
But here's where we can say that we can blame the government in that, because if you go back to the opioid crisis when it first started, which had to be around 2001, those little coal mining towns of West Virginia and Kentucky, when they were just pushing those pills. And if you guys get a chance, watch Dope Sick. It's on Hulu, and it lets you know how the FDA allowed Purdue Pharma to push the narrative that OxyContin was not addictive. That less than 1% of people got addicted. And by the time people started bringing awareness, they were saying 400,000 people dead. So that is an example of the government failing to protect its people. You allowed this company to push this lie and this rhetoric that people didn't get addicted. And then it started hitting the young demographic. Not to say that there wasn't an older demographic of people, but people were in pain. But it started, oh, well, if they have a headache, you can give them an oxy. If they get a tooth pulled, you can give them an oxy. And now people are looking to the same government that allowed this. Okay, well, what are we going to do? We need rehabilitation centers, long term. You know, at that point, we should be talking to the government about what they choose to do. Because why can addicts have access to methadone and Suboxone, but children who have asthma, their parents have to pay $300 for an inhaler? Or I have an EpiPen because I have allergies, $600 for an EpiPen. Or diabetic medicine, that's $350. See, some of these things we don't choose. The government chooses it for us. The government chose to let all these people be addicted. And subsequently, they're still choosing not to really crack down on it. Okay, you can't buy more than 2 boxes of Sudafed. Okay, but it's still a problem.
okay. I'm listening to what you're saying, and I want to go back 20 years.
2006. Okay.
20, actually, not 19 years
Okay.
to Hurricane Katrina.
Whew.
Do you think it was an individual choice or a government choice to allow, and again, I know it was a force of nature.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that if the government were different at that time, that the administration was different, that the loss of life would have been less? Do you think it was a government choice to purposely not, and I use the word purposely, not reinforce the levees?
Yes. Yes, they knew the levees were going to break.
So
And
if the
instead
levees
of,
surrounded a neighborhood that was not low income, would the levees have been reinforced?
yes, hands down, yes.
So if that dome, I can't remember the name of the dome that everybody went to.
Terradome?
They
Is it
ended up
Terradome?
tearing that down. They had to tear that down and start over, didn't they? Because it was so
I'm not
destroyed.
sure. You
But
gave me something to research, though.
if the majority of people in there were rich people, would the government have made sure that resources would have been there? Was it a government choice to allow bodies just to be dead on the street and not be picked up for weeks?
Yes, because black people are not seen as human like white people, and that's just a harsh truth and a harsh reality. I'll give you a great example. couple weeks ago, we had a massive snowfall here in Pennsylvania and Jersey and New York. Now, Pennsylvania is going to plow anyway because it's the mountains, but it's also a lot of Trump supporters up here, a lot of white people up here. Now, let's hop over to my home state of Jersey. Certain white neighborhoods that we know are straight up white. The population is probably 2% black. Those neighborhoods got cleaned, got plowed, salted. People could park their cars. Meanwhile, in Newark, East Orange, Irvington, Patterson, anybody who doesn't know about these cities, do look them up. They're listed as urban, you know, inner city. I'm still seeing people park their cars on top of ice because nobody did anything. One-way streets, you got to crawl down because there's still so much ice and snow because the city didn't take care of it. It is a choice of the government. They feel like people don't matter. Katrina was a tragedy. And then you had people saying, well, people chose to stay in their homes. They chose not to evacuate. Where were they going to go?
Okay, so let's talk talk about that because from what I understand, I've been to New Orleans twice. I've never lived there, but I was told that when you live in a city or state where there's a lot of flooding, where it's a possibility of your like the water coming up to the second floor, one thing that you need to have is an axe where if you have to chop through the roof, whatever, you can get that. Now, I have in the last couple of years become somewhat of a prepper, but I was also raised by a father who said there better be a flashlight in every room. You better have candles. You drive as though you're going to be stranded. And coming from a cold state, in my car to this day, I have a shovel, I have sand, I have things that if I am going to be stuck for at least three days, I will be able to make it. Is it your choice that you were not more prepared? Like even when the weather reports were saying leave, and you weren't leaving, but instead of running to the store in a mad dash to get stuff to survive, you just didn't do anything. So is that your choice? So if your family was stranded or someone died, are you part of that problem? Not just the government, but are you part of that problem?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, it's all about being prepared. Like I just said, I'm at a tire shop. How did I get here? It wasn't by a tow truck. It was because I had a donut in there. I have a jack. I have a tire iron. I have everything I need to change a tire. I got blankets in here, in case something happens to where I'm stuck on the highway. At one time, we got 28 inches of snow, and people had to leave their cars on the highway because they were running out of gas. Some people just bundled up and hunkered down. But it is a choice to prepare yourself at all times. Flashlights, candles, water. Why are you buying eggs and bread? If the lights go out and you ain't got a fireplace or a fire pit, how the hell are you gonna cook it?
Well, bread you can eat, but yeah.
Bread, yes, but eggs, what the hell you gonna do?
Okay, but even for that, it's like you have people who just don't have anything though. They're just like, oh no, that's not. Or if they do go to the store, they'll buy something that is like they'll buy their cigarettes, they'll buy their alcohol,
liquor.
They'll go down to to get something that is like not going to help you survive. Even if you got to get that ice chest and just put some hot dogs in there, that's gonna last for a night. At least y'all got some damn hot Dogs.
Y'all got something. Y'all ain't just sitting there looking crazy.
And I mean, so how much is it the government? How much is it individual responsibility? Because again, I say that when it comes to certain things, the government did not make all those people run to the Capitol on January 6th. That was your choice.
That,
You
that was
chose
a
to do that.
choice. Yes,
That was your choice.
absolutely.
It wasn't like, I mean, even if you want to blame Trump and say, oh, well, Trump told me and he said whatever, it was still your choice to listen to a fool and go down there and do what you did.
I agree. It was. It absolutely was. It was their choice. Nobody. I mean, when you look at where some of the people came from, like Ashley Babbitt came from your state. She came from your state,
So you'll go
California,
all the way
to
across the country.
DC.
So you are literally going to go like 3,000 miles, to do what you did. And to be fair, anyone who was protesting during that time, and if you were breaking windows and looting and stuff like that, that was not a government telling you to do that. That was not the government. That was an individual choice for you to loot,
Right,
for you to do anything. So again,
right.
I say individual choices versus the government. The government is not to blame for everything.
They're not. They're not. They're not. But like I said, the hardest thing that people can do is say, I am the problem. I didn't take care of my business. I sat around. My aunt always says, keep your eye on the eye. Keep your eye on the eye. What didn't I do? What could I have done? You know?
Why do you think people have such a hard time just acknowledging or admitting that they're wrong or that they did this, whatever? I mean, because there are so many things that I have said, you know what, you're right. I shouldn't have done that, or they were wrong, or whatever. But for some people, it's just so hard for them to do it when we all know what is going on. Why can't you just say it? What is so hard for you that you can't say it?
Listen, I will say this till the end of time. People will die on the stupidest hills because they don't want to take accountability. They will argue you down and they knew they were wrong 10 minutes ago. But it's a hard thing and it is kind of painful. I have I'm not ashamed to say I am one of those people who now say, yeah, I was the problem in that situation. Yeah, I could have handled that better. I didn't have to say that. You know, I'm still working on the not saying things part, but I can admit when I'm wrong or when I'm incorrect. Um, it's a learning experience. Say that you were wrong to, hey, you know what? I've wasted a lot of time doing nothing. I've watched life pass me by. I've waited for things to fall in my lap because I was too lazy to get up and do what I knew I had to do. Those are not easy statements for someone to make. So it's easier to say, well, the government isn't doing this for me and the government is supposed to do that. No, the government is not there so you can be lazy. The government is not there so you can just sit on your hands. The government is just the government. It's a small percentage. And if we all decided to unite and storm, they might have a problem, but that's not going to happen. So you have to make it happen. Either you want to bring something to society and your community, or you want to be a load.
I mean, and you're right. Some people they will die on that hill. Some people will and I had somebody who used to say to me, well, if that's the hill you want to die on, but you know what? At least I'm making a choice to die on that hill, because some people, I'm gonna use the word coward. Some people
Okay.
are cowards where they won't even say they will die on that hill. They would rather, they'll follow other people. They'll repeat what other people say but they won't take a stand. At least I'm taking a stand. Even if I'm dying on that hill, at least I'm taking that stand. And those are the people that I applaud. I may not agree with you, but if you can stand up and you can, say, and you are just so intent on this whatever, then you know what? More power to you. Let's agree to disagree,
Disagree.
but at least you took a stand. And people who say if you want to die on that hill, these are people who I've never even seen get on a little mountain, get on a little. I mean, they will never. They'll. I mean, they just won't. They just won't. They just won't. So I don't know. I don't know. I just think that we need to stop blaming and look internally and look at ourselves, look in the mirror and see that you're not that perfect, you're not that great, no one's better than someone else, no matter what you may think. um, but one thing I will say is before you criticize somebody, you need to look at your own life, you need to look at your own self. Because like I said, there are some things that even on these shows that have come up, and I've kept my mouth shut because I have learned that if you are going to talk about somebody or criticize somebody, you better make damn sure that nobody can
That's
come
your.
and criticize you.
I agree. And you have, and everybody should remember, it begins and ends with you.
Mm-hmm.
That's where choices come from. It comes from you.
Mm-hmm.
It begins and ends with you. You're not too old to do anything. You're not too, well, you can be too young to do, if you're not over 18, but you're not too anything. You might be too lazy,
I mean, but
too
even
unmotivated.
still, you have children who, if you're on the playground and you're bullying, if you're, in first grade and you're bullying another first grader, you know the difference between right and wrong.
Absolutely.
You know that you shouldn't be picking on that kid. You know the difference. And I think that you also know that if you have parents who are like, yeah, that person's this, or don't talk to them because they look like this, or don't talk to them because of this and that, you children know, that
Right.
that's not right. So
Right.
you you still do it. Hey Tricina, welcome. But I don't know. I just say that if you're going to criticize people, make damn sure that that criticism cannot come back to you. And if it does come back to you, you can't be pissed because it came back to you. So, like I said, there are times when people say stuff. I just,
I'd like them. I'm gonna let you live.
you know,
I'm gonna let you live.
because we all have stuff. We all have skeletons in our closet, be they big skeletons, small skeletons. I don't care what it is. It could be that when you were five, you stole a pack of gum. It could be something like that. But I'm just saying that if you are going to criticize a certain thing about certain people, make damn sure that that same criticism cannot come back to you. And if it does, you do not have a right to get pissed off. You do
I
not
agree.
have that right. You know, so and
Well
and
said.
and I'm gonna tell you, I am one of those people, y'all. If you go there with me, and
Whew.
um, I'm trying to debate if I want to tell this story because it happened so long ago in high
Tell
school,
it.
but it's still
Give
but
the
it's
people what
still
they want.
something that I think about, and it comes up every so often in conversations with people that I talked to way back when. But um, I was a freshman my sister was a senior, and we went to a Lutheran school, so we were supposed to be Christians, okay. And there was this one girl that I think I told you this story before. There was this one girl who would always talk about my father, and you know, I get my eyesight from my father. My father had bad eyesight; his glasses were thick, and this one particular person would always talk about my father. Oh yeah, your father, his glasses and da 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 da. And I would say to her, you need to really stop talking about somebody's father. You really need to stop
Right.
talking about somebody's father. And she just kept going on and on and on and on. Well, my sister comes out of the school, and we're standing in front of the building, and she hears this person. This person's sister comes out behind my sister, and my sister and her sister were both seniors, and we're both freshmen. And her sister starts laughing. Now, a little background, their mother is just like them. So they get it from their mother. So she just kept going on and on, and my sister's getting pissed. And my sister's about to say something, and I look at my sister, I'm like, just like keep going.
I got this.
And other people, this person has made fun of, other people who are standing there, and some people are kind of laughing, some people are doing that nervous laughter, and some of the kids are like, hey, why don't you chill, whatever, whatever, because they're looking at me, they're looking at my sister, whatever. And my sister's like ready to all on her. And I'm just looking at her. So finally, I said, and if I offend anyone who is listening, I do not mean to offend you, but this is where
This ain't for you.
this is where I say that you need to really be careful when you talk to other people. And I looked at her and I said, real calm. I didn't go off on her. I said, at least my father remembered where he lives. Silence. Silence. Her face turns
Bruh.
red. Tears come to her eye. Her sister's looking at me like, I'm about to kick your ass. And I remember we all supposed to be Christians, right? So whatever. And my sister just looks at me, and I said, I know when I go home tonight, I know your mother's going to call my mother. Make sure you tell her the truth. I said, you really need to be careful of what you say. And that's all I said. That is all I said. I went home, sure enough, get a phone call later that night. I hear my mother on the phone. My mother's like, okay, she came home. She told me this. My other daughter, she told me this. Okay, yes. Well, your daughter has a habit of talking about my husband. Well, yes, my husband does. He has bad eyesight. Yes, he does. Yeah, but did my daughter, did she lie about her father, your husband, whatever? And my mother's like, hello. So I know there was silence there. And my sister and I, we're just kind of like standing outside my mother's bedroom door. And my father's in the kitchen. And he's kind of listening to this too, whatever. And he's just shaking his head. And she's like, okay. Well, yeah, you can. If it goes that far, yes, we will be up at school. Yes. And my mother hangs up. She calls me into her room. That was Mrs. So and so, and she's upset, whatever. And I said, and I'll say it again. And my mother said she should not have opened her mouth. And I go into the kitchen, and my father's sitting there, and he said, I understand. My father was let's just keep the peace, don't fight, whatever, where my mother was the complete opposite. And He said, "This is why I tell you girls that be careful what you say. Don't open up your mouth, because things will come back to you." And
True.
I've told the story before when I used to talk about people like crazy. And my father would tell me, "You need to stop. You need to stop." I go to school one day in gym class. We are in the locker room changing our clothes. I hear these girls who are in the locker room, they don't know I'm there, talking about me like a dirty dog, like a dirty dog. And everything they were saying was absolutely true. Thankfully,
Damn.
thankfully, PE was my last class. So I can just get on the bus and go home. I get home, I'm crying, I'm in tears. My father comes home, my mother comes home. What's wrong? I'm telling him, no sympathy from my father, none. He was like, "I told you, you talk too much. You need to stop. You need to stop, because one day you're gonna hear something or somebody's gonna say something to you that's
And you're
gonna
not gonna like it.
hurt your feelings." And that is when I just stopped. I just literally, I mean, it was like in my face, in
Yeah.
my face. And what I did to this girl was in her face. So unless somebody can come back to you, or you're saying something that's not going to come back to you, shut the fuck up. And Tristina says
Well.
mirrors are harsh sometimes. Yes, yes,
Oh yes.
they are. But my dad was just one of those people like, stop talking about people. And he would always say, when you're at home talking about somebody, they're at home talking about you.
Not you. Yeah.
But in this
No,
case, they were in the
it's
locker
the
room
truth.
talking, you know,
It's the truth.
so but anyway, we are at our hour, but I want to throw this out here, you guys. So on Friendly Differences, we did a show, What Black People Want. Um, I've
Uh
gotten
oh.
some emails from various people, but I am going to do a show on April the, hold on, let me get the exact date. April the 4th. April the 4th.
Okay.
I am doing a show, What White People Want. And so I will not be accused of stacking the deck and piling on. I will be the only Black person on the show, on the panel. Um,
Oh.
if there are, I am inviting any, and I will make this announcement on Friendly Differences on Saturday. If there are any white people who want to come on the show, please email me at solidbluesister@gmail.com or friendlydifferences@gmail.com. The criteria is you have to show your face. Please have working internet. Um, and I am inviting conservative, liberal, MAGA, far right, far left, those type of white people. If you're Nazis, whatever, I'm inviting you. But when I invite these people, they never show up. But yet they'll come into the comments and they'll troll, and we have one person who likes to come on Friendly Differences and call the panel retards. Okay, you know, but that is what I'm doing on April the 4th. I already have 3 people who are coming on. But again,
You got 3 white people coming on?
you know, um, but I want it to be a mix. So again, I say if there's any MAGAs, conservatives, Nazis, January 6 people out there, whatever, come on and tell me, what do white people want? And I will be the only Black person on the panel. And come on, and you can say whatever. And
Come on, Cletus.
I know Dre is upset that she cannot be on that show. But that is going to be the show.
What if I promise to mute the whole time, not say nothing?
You can, if you want to be on, you can be in the comments. You can be in the comments.
Ah,
No, because see, Dre has a problem. She has an indoor face and her outdoor face, and certain times her outdoor face.
that. Oh, it has. Oh, right. It has no inside voice.
Yeah,
Right, right. Yeah, yeah,
her outdoor.
yeah.
Yeah.
She's caught me looking at people like this.
Yeah. So anyway, everyone, that's it. Dred, thank you for spending the hour with me, and thank you for people who have come on to the show today. And I'm looking at Tracina because she is laughing.
Tracina was with us with Thomas this morning. So she's a supporter of
She
GCPR.
is a coffee bean. She's a coffee beaner.
Yeah, she's a
Yes.
coffee bean, right? So
So,
Tracina, we appreciate you being here. Absolutely.
and for people who watch the show on replay, I appreciate it too. So anyway, everybody, enjoy the rest of your day and peace.